Now right behind me, I have 5 of some of my favorite paintings, one of which is still in work in progress. But these paintings I have lined up based on scale. This one is the smallest painting I've ever done. That's my hand. It is 10 by 10, so really small canvas. And I have not ever made a video of that before, so if it's new, it's the first time you've ever seen that. This is my second one, Meadow of Reflection. You've definitely seen this one before if you've checked out my channel before. And this is 11 by 14 inches, a little bit bigger. This is the Undersea Dive painting. This is a big step up. That's my hand. This is 20 inches by 20 inches, so major step up from the other one. This, oh gosh, it's getting too big for me to hold. This is, I actually don't have a name for it, but this canvas is 40 by 30 inches. That's my hand, so they're getting big. And finally, oh man, let me just set that down. It's a behemoth. We have this one behind me. That's my hand. It's huge. And what I want to talk about today is the different techniques that you should use based on the scale of the painting. For example, with this tiny one, while I definitely have gotten a lot better since I painted that one, this was painted in November 2019, there are definitely differences in the techniques that I've used compared to a giant one like that. It's so funny just seeing it next to it itself. Yeah. Anyways, with bigger and bigger canvases, what really changes is the way you paint the underlayer. The bigger the canvas, the more you can just experiment and be like, you know what, that's easier to change. Because the larger it is, the less precise you have to be with all of your stuff. If I wanted to paint this on this giant canvas behind me, I could be so inaccurate and it would still look like this. But I could always make it a lot better, right? So, the biggest thing when you're changing the scale of your paintings is the brush strokes you use and how precise you are in your beginning layers. Because when you're trying to use the smallest brush you can, trying to make tiny details, it's the exact same process for this or for that, right? It's the same general process, but for your big giant strokes that you're using, you can be inaccurate and experiment a bunch, but you get the right colors in the beginning, and that's what matters. And you'll eventually notice that as you paint something larger, you will get to a point where you have sort of this equilibrium of knowing how big of a brush stroke you can do, but also not being too inaccurate. And that's what I love about painting giant canvases. And then you can always come back and be super detailed. But as a painter, you should always practice with small paintings like this one. Never just dive into one of these big ones. And even as you progress as a painter and become a better painter, you can still appreciate painting something really small. For example, Meadow of Reflection, which is really tiny compared to this other one, case in point, this one I spent like 15 hours on, and it's one of my best paintings because I went back to such a small one and just really focused on those fine details. Also, with small canvases, you don't feel like you're wasting paint if you mess up on something. You don't feel like, oh, I just threw away a few dollars of paint because I got that color wrong. Reality is you didn't. With a painting this small, you don't feel obligated to make something amazing because it's really small. Something this large, you almost get into a mindset of like, ooh, this needs to be really good to make it worth this giant canvas. Like this canvas was almost $40, right? And so I know I struggled with feeling like, I feel like I have to make it worth it to myself. But with a tiny canvas like this that was less than $2, I didn't feel obligated to do something incredible, even though I, actually pulled off one of my best paintings. So I think as a young painter, you should work on small canvases, do the occasional big one, and then come back to small canvases. It's always just a good learning curve to do, and eventually settle on what you like. For me, I love these big ones, but since it takes so long, I can't do many of them, and I've really enjoyed with these smaller canvases, just like throwing something together in a few days and then moving on to the next adventure. So that's my advice for how to change your painting style as you grow from small canvases to big canvases and maybe giant canvases and maybe tiny canvases. So I hope that you have enjoyed, and if you undertake a giant painting like this, know it's going to take a while, but know it's always going to be worth it. And the big ones, that's what you hang up and people really love. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe. And yeah, I'll see you next time. Thanks for watching.